Thank you, Songs Against Slavery. It's so exciting as a chaplain to see our alumni come back. And just the stirring and passion and the obedience and courage to follow what they believe God has for them. Tonight, I would love for you to come back. Amazing concert. I know some of you, you're sitting here and there's a stirring in your soul, and it may be for human trafficking, it may be for something else. So two of the gals that started this nonprofit, it happened when they were freshmen. And so what is happening with you? Come hear their story, and also there'll be a story of a survivor, and then amazing original music. So doors will open at 7, and 7:30 the concert will start. Another invitation I want to throw out is Volunteer Services is asking you to help out. We, as a Hope community, are invited to help the Flint community. So grab a jug of water when you go shopping, or change. There's going to be buckets. For the next 2 weeks, they're going to do a collection. And the third announcement, I would like to invite you to a women's night out. So this is a W in sign language. Women, if you could sign up, there's still openings. Friday night, it's going to be fabulous. And then the last announcement that I would like to make a special invitation for you to go, it's going to be happening 2 o'clock today, and it's at Graves, and our speaker today is going to be doing a lecture, and it's specifically on human trafficking. He comes to us as an expert. John Cotton Richmond, some of you heard him last night. He is a federal prosecutor for the U.S. Justice Department, so he will come with knowledge. If you are interested in law, this is an amazing opportunity. If you're interested in this cause, there will be some really good information. So I would like to welcome back, and help me welcome back John Cotton Richmond.
Good morning. Last year when I got to be here, we talked about hate and how hate is important. But this year, I'd like to talk a little bit about what I see as an identity crisis in our culture. And that is that people are walking through life really not knowing who they are. They're not knowing their names. In the 1960s, popular psychology told us that we need to go out and find ourselves, as if our identities were a hidden treasure that we had to go out and seek without the benefit of even a map. But that's not true. Our identities are not a mystery, and they are not hidden. And it's like we have one of those stickers, those name tag stickers where you write your name, but someone scribbled all over it that our pasts, the things that we've done, or the things that have been done to us, mar our identities. Or maybe it's the way that we wear masks and try to pretend as we perform for others about who we want them to perceive us to be. And by far, I think the biggest identity trap, the biggest thing that messes up our name tags, is this idea of performance. The idea that what I do equals who I am. And the reason that this is a crisis is because what happens to the smart kid when he can no longer maintain the good grades? What happens to the athletic kid when they're cut from the team? Or the pretty kid who has an awkward face? And as adults, it's our professions and then our kids that become our identities. And many just suffer under the weight of all their potential, all the things everyone keeps telling them they could be, or fear that they can't maintain. That they can't maintain their beauty or their social status. And the great irony of this whole identity trap is that everyone here is in a gradual state of deterioration. You are growing older, although it is hard for you to imagine. If things go well, your body will get old and weak and unable to perform. So this whole identity trap is destined to end poorly. And then the real problem is that we get so used to enjoying the approval we get through our performance that we then translate that into our relationship with God. And we just fail to know our names. In our house, our family, and our 3 kids, we try to live by 10 life rules, and rule number 8 is know your name. And it's all about understanding who we are, and it affects how we view ourselves, and it affects how we view others. It reminds me of the older brother in the prodigal son parable. He trusted in his performance. He was the good son. He worked really hard. I think from the passage we can guess that he was nice. But it really ended poorly for him because he couldn't understand his dad's generous love. And remember how the story ends? The younger brother and the dad are inside partying, and the older brother is outside with his messy name tag of performance all by himself. He failed to know his name. I once met a young girl with a very messy name tag. Her name was Shiva, and she was born into a poor, low-caste family in India, and she was full of youthful joy. You know, if Shiva was to have a name tag back then in her village, it would look something like this. It would say innocent. It would be full of carefree and playful. She liked to twirl and dance, much like my daughter did at her age. And it didn't take Shiva long as she matured to catch the eye of an older woman in her village who saw in Shiva an easy profit. And this woman took Shiva and sold her to another trafficker. In a sense, this woman wrote on Shiva's name tag, pretty, vulnerable, and weak. And then Shiva was shipped like cargo across the Indian subcontinent to a Mumbai brothel. And there she was sold to strangers for their use, all for the economic gain of her traffickers. It was rape for profit, and they too wrote on her name tag. They wrote words like worthless, whore, and prostitute. They battered her sense of self and her fragile frame, 20 to 30 people a day. And as she became less profitable because she was getting sick, she moved from higher-end brothels to lower-end brothels, from one trafficker to another in a downward spiral of inhumanity. Until fortunately, she came to the attention of the authorities, and they wanted to return her to her hometown, to her native place. And that's where I met Shiva. My office was responsible for helping her reintegrate into her home. And at first she was excited to go there, a place where she knew the language, where she had friends. But upon her arrival, her spirit was again battered. She got there and they gave her names like spoiled and damaged. They rejected her. You see, Shiva needed a bed. She needed a roof over her head. She needed lots of medical care. But what she needed most was someone to sit beside her, hold her hand, and tell her that she mattered, that she was more than her messy name tag. Guys, in Micah 6:8, it tells us that our call is to seek justice, love mercy, and walk humbly. And if seeking justice is making wrong things right, then in Shiva's case, making those wrong things right meant finding a way to peel off all of those negative names. You know, our lives can be a mess too. I mean, I wonder if we took an honest look at our name tags today, if we imagine what sort of words might be written there, we would find all sorts of things. Insecure, lonely, forgotten, liar, used, abused, embarrassed, afraid. I mean, circumstances, others, negative self-talk, all these things work together to obscure our God-given identity. But God is in the business of exchanging name tags. Abram got his name tag fixed at the covenant when he became Abraham, and Sarai became Sarah. Jacob, the deceiver, wrestled with God and got a new name, Israel. Saul became Paul, and my favorite, Simon, became Peter, the Rock, which is a good name. And Paul, perhaps our most famous name tag exchange participant, put it this way. In Romans chapter 8, he said, "For those who are led by the Spirit of God, they are children of God. The Spirit you received does not make you slaves, so that you live in fear again. Rather, the Spirit you received brought about your adoption as sonship. And by him we cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit himself testifies with our spirit that we are children of God. And now if we are children, then we are heirs, heirs of God and co-heirs with Christ. In a sense, when we choose to follow Jesus, we get a new name. We become his kid. We have access to him like only kids have access to healthy moms and dads. And get this, your performance can't change that. The good news is that God wants you on his team. You're his adopted daughters, you're his adopted sons. He knows everything about you, even the stuff you're not ready to admit to others. He knows it and he likes you anyway. You know, during Shiva's last few weeks of life, she was very weak. We wanted her to know her true identity, but her eyes were becoming dark and lost until her body followed her spirit and she began to slip away. She was only in her early 20s when she passed from this world, but she looked old and withered beyond her years. When I think about sex trafficking, I think about her lifeless body. Because there was nothing cute or interesting, there was nothing fun or enjoyable at the prostitution in which she was forced to engage. It destroys life. And there may be 20 million slaves in the world today, maybe more than ever before in human history. But she was not just a number, she was a person, and she had a name. And she had been completely abandoned by everyone that was supposed to love her. And at her funeral, there were only a few hospital workers and our team. And in a beautiful act of dignity, one of the social workers, she began to verbally peel off all those negative names that had been scribbled across Shiva's name tag. And in the end, we wanted to restore her identity. You see, she was not the unwanted girl child. She was not a pretty young woman to be used. She was not worthless. She was not a commodity to be sold and traded. She was not a victim. She was not a whore or a prostitute, and she was not spoiled. She was fearfully and wonderfully made by the God of the universe before the beginning of time to be enjoyed by him forever. He created her. He knew her. He knit her together. And at her funeral, the name that God gave her and the name of her Creator were boldly spoken. If she didn't have dignity in life, she would have it in death. So here's the truth. Your best acts don't define you. Your worst acts don't define you. Your potential and your past do not define you. Your performance doesn't define you. God has already defined you. He's already given you a name. And so live boldly into your truest identity. Let God exchange your name tags and let others off the hook and embrace their new name tags. And let yourself off the hook and embrace yours and abide in him. And no matter what, know your name. Thank you.